Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions. Anybody that's listening that's requested, we're getting to you, I promise.
Well, congratulations. I mean,
so
that just shows the work that you're doing.
Well, 4.5 months, we did 100 episodes, right?
Mhm.
And some of those you've listened to, right? In February alone, we'll do 50.
50?
50. In 1
So you're
month.
doing almost 2 a day.
Yeah. Well, no, we're doing 4 a day in some instances. Today we'll do 5. So it's, I mean, I have 20 interviews this week, and last week I had 18. So
Impressive.
It's wild, man. It is just wild. This thing is just blown up. Like just a couple weeks ago, it just went.
I need to come back on so I can interview you.
Oh, let's go.
Right. So
let's go, baby. Let's go.
Your story about, how you've grown this, and why don't you tell us real quick? I mean,
I don't really know the answer. So I can tell you
start?
It's getting people's stories. So what the feedback we're getting is people are telling people about the podcast, right? So word of mouth, I would say more than anything else. We hit some sort of a critical point, like flashpoint or something just recently. And it just like took off. Like, I mean, we're the number 34 ranked podcast in Ireland. I don't know how in the world that happened, right? But we're number 34, and it's like, and our ranking is going up because people are listening and they're ranking us and they're subscribing and they're rating us and everything, and they're liking what they're hearing. I think is the biggest thing, and people are telling each other about it, and it's I really feel like that's fundamentally that's the deal. And I've had people, Brian, get up from interviews with me and look at me and go, nobody's ever asked me about me. Nobody's ever asked me to tell my life story, right?
Mm-hmm.
A guy the other day that's in his 80s. He was a radio legend in Montana, Shelby, Montana.
Okay.
42 years. 42 years he was in radio. He got up from talking with me. He's Mike, nobody's ever asked me these questions before. Nobody's ever asked, and we got his life story on tape, right? Think about how valuable that is. I mean, the radio station that he was with for 42 years found out that we did an interview with his life story. They put a link to our podcast on their website. That's the kind of stuff that helps us, right?
Yeah.
Because people start learning about what it is we're doing and they embrace the mission, because this is all about our listeners. It's not about me. It's all about our listeners and how they can look at somebody like Brian Thomas, who's unbelievably accomplished, and go, you know what? If Brian can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
Right? Or, you know what I'm saying? It's just, it's one of those things that I get feedback from people all the time, and they're just blown away at some of these stories. And some of the stories, Brian, are just unbelievable. I mean, they are just crazy, but crazy in a good way, Anyway, it's just fun. I can't tell you. I know I hide it well, but I'm really enjoying myself. So
I'm happy that you.
So I appreciate you, man. You're awesome.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a lot more together. So I just literally just made myself available schedule wise a couple of weeks ago. I did my first interview on somebody else's podcast, and we had so much fun that they're bringing me back for another one. Right.
Well, you'll have to let us know when that is. So it's up. So
absolutely. Yeah. We'll put it on social.
Look forward to that.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like, right. And then they reached out to the number 1 podcast in San Diego. That guy booked me. Didn't even call me. He just booked me. Right. And he's coming on my podcast.
Excellent.
And then we've got We've got an all-pro linebacker that was with the San Diego Chargers, Sean Merriman. He's
No,
coming.
yeah, I know who he is.
Marquez Colston from the New Orleans Saints is coming on. I mean, we've got John Rulin, who wrote Giftology. If you haven't read Giftology, you got to go get it.
Yeah.
He's coming on. The guy is he's just a savant when it comes to growing your business. Okay. It's called Giftology, and it's one of the best books I've ever read in my life. And he's coming on in a couple of days. So
I look forward to hearing that then too.
Super excited about it. In fact, Sean Merriman comes on Monday. But I think it's the guests, I think, is the real key to this. The stories that people have where they've overcome so much, and they've come from trauma, they've come from they've come from all kinds of walks of life to break out and succeed, and they have such a refreshing take on things now, like they're victorious, right? This one lady I interviewed a couple of days ago was severely abused growing up. I mean, it was absolutely awful, right? And she read a book called The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. Turned her life around, completely turned her life around, changed the way that she looked at things. Now she's a published author, okay? And she wrote a book about her life and about all the things that she had been through and how she dealt with it, and how now she coaches people on how to take their life to another level. And I asked her, I said, do you realize that the people that are coming to your book signing that you're doing in a couple of weeks, it's her second book signing, I said, do you realize that they're coming to you to have you sign their book, and it's your book and it's validation?
Yeah.
And she goes, Mike, I never even thought of it that way. Yeah. Well, you don't, right? You're an author, you're promoting your book. It's part of your book tour. But for her, people that are coming to her to stand in line to have her sign their book, they've dealt with abuse in the past. They've dealt with, right? Or they knew somebody who has. And to read her book and see the victory in it, right?
Yeah.
Big deal, man. It's a big deal. She's like, I never thought of it that way. Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah,
so,
that's
all right. So let's talk about DePaul for just a second.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
Let's go back. So University of Illinois, what was your favorite thing about going to college there?
Wow. The honest truth was probably the social aspect of it.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I was a good student. So, fortunately and unfortunately, I didn't have to work terribly hard to get good grades. I had learned how to do it in high school. I really enjoyed, playing softball on a warm day, right? I enjoyed hanging out with friends. I enjoyed having that, that first taste of freedom, even though I was still really tied to my parents somewhat. I mean, I really enjoyed that. I look back at it, and there are regrets I have. And when I say regrets, it's not like, but I wish I would have actually enjoyed the educational component of it too. Like if I could do it again today, or if I did it now, I would be in the books, so hard, or very hard, and I just didn't have to do that then. And I, I'm just a different. We all grow, and we're all different than the Brian Thomas from 30 years ago.
Right.
But that's really what I liked about it. I really liked socializing. I had a great group of friends, a great group of guys, and a great group of girls. We all hung out together, and it was a great time.
Have you shared with your kids your experience in terms of what you wish you had done in college?
100%. Yeah.
That's
and
incredibly valuable.
Yeah. Now that said, they will live their own lives. They will make their own decisions. I mean, my job is to, kind of like what you said, is provide them a good example. Because I can't say do this, do that, and do the other if I'm not doing it.
No.
But
it's important that we share with them our take on it, right? Because one of the things that I told my kids, they're 23 and 25 now, but I told my kids, I said, listen, there's a reason why God put us on this planet first and you second, okay? You're here to listen to what I've learned. So I'm going to share with you what my experiences have been. I'm going to share with you what I wish I had done differently, right?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So that's what I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
it's just incredibly important that we share it with them. And it's more than anything else, they get to school and they confirm it, right?
Yeah.
And both of my children have called me and said independently of each other and thanked me for the way we raised them.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool.
That's awesome.
One of those watershed moments, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about DePaul. What was your favorite thing about going to DePaul Law School?
Well, I didn't have as much fun at DePaul as I did at University of Illinois. We can start there.
You had to work hard, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I really got, it's, who says it about, was it Mike Tyson is like, you have a plan until you get punched in the face.
Right. Everybody has a plan.
I got punched in the face.
In the mouth.
I certainly got punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
So it was really having to dig deep and figure it out. Right. And, I wasn't the smartest kid in the room anymore.
Yeah.
And that was okay. And, the great thing about it is then, I actually did enjoy learning again and worked at it. I had to work at it now. So yeah, not only did I have to work at it, but then, going out on my own or, starting, as a lawyer, I found that, maybe I'm not the smartest person in the room anymore, but I will still out hustle you.
Yeah. And
right.
And I became right. You've got strengths that other people don't have. And the best thing about it is you got tested when you were in law school and you were victorious.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It was tough. Yeah. I was victorious, but it didn't, it took a lot of work, tears. I don't know about blood, certainly sweat.
Yeah. Might not have been as much blood, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But it certainly wasn't easy. And, I'm glad for it because I did become a grinder. Yeah. Right. And because, look, I'm going to walk into rooms from, the rest of my life where I'm not going to be the smartest person in the room. And that's fine. Yeah. Right. That's not something I can control, but I can control who I'm being and how hard I'm going to work. Yeah. And whether or not I'm prepared. Like there's so many different things that I control that are going to go toward whether or not I do well once I get into the room. Yeah. Right. So I really focused on those.
At some point, you started your own company.
I did. 11 years ago.
What made you do that?
Well, it was, it's kind of a combination of things that all kind of happened at the same time. I was a partner at a law firm, a personal injury law firm, plaintiff's personal injury law firm. I wasn't in love with the culture there. I was turning 40. So it was at this point in my life where it's like, if I don't do this now, I'm going to never do it. Right. And ultimately, when I say partner, it was really the other guy's firm, and he brought me in, to kind of help and build my practice within his. Right. And, again, I wasn't really keen on the culture. He and I were fine, but I don't want to say battled, but like his number two, the office manager, and I didn't really see eye to eye. Yeah. And, I ended up leaving that firm, and that's when I went out and started building my own. Yeah. All right. And the great thing about it was because, that man and I remained close, I ultimately leased space in his office. So I ended up paying him rent, and I was able for 2 years, 2.5 years to build my practice, my own shop, Thomas Law, within his. Yeah. And, that's where I made my first hires, and I still remember that first hire, my first, who's now my office manager, Lucy Garcia, but she came to me and asked, and she is someone that I knew back when I was at Fakeless and Talus. She wanted to move and start working with me. And I remember saying to myself, I can't afford it. And I remember going home and saying to my wife, Amy, I'm like, I can't afford Lucy. And I remember Amy's words. She said, can you afford not to have Lucy? And, that was over 10 years ago now. And those were the, best words. One of the best lessons I've learned as being a business owner. Yeah.
Amazing that and then do that, right?
I'm sorry?
It's amazing how wives do that.
Yeah.
They watch it. Yeah. Your kids are watching you too, right? But your wife watches you. And you come home and you go, like, there's no, and then she turns it into, well, are you sure you can't? Right. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, right. Because their perception, what they see is different than what we see. Yeah. We're not built the same, right? It's just amazing. I just love how wives help us clarify things. It's unreal.
And they're the perfect coach because they're
Yeah.
there every day,
Yeah.
right? And I
Yeah.
can't see my blind spots,
Yeah.
right? I know that. That doesn't necessarily mean I want to listen, but I certainly, I acknowledge I
Yeah.
can't see my blind spots, and I acknowledge she gives excellent advice.
Well, sometimes we're not smart enough to listen, right?
True.
But we hear it. And then a week later, we're like, oh, okay. Right. Right. It's one of those
100%.
eureka moments and you're like, oh, thank God for her. Right. So I interviewed a guy who's incredibly successful now as a real estate investor.
Mhm.
And he was dancing around these projects and he didn't pull the trigger and he didn't pull the trigger, didn't pull the trigger. Right. And he goes home one day and she goes, so did you buy that property? And he goes, yeah, it's got this and it's got that and it's got this. And she's like, okay, so when are you going to step up? Right?
Yep.
Turns around, buys the property the next day, and that opened the floodgates. And now he's a millionaire several times over because his wife basically laid it out. Okay. And it's like, we're going. Here we go. Okay. So here's the question. What's your favorite thing about owning Thomas Law?
Wow. I think I'm experiencing it today. Like I'm having one of those, like a great day. We have a jury trial going on now. So, I had meetings in the morning that I was able to run over to the courthouse and see one of our attorneys give an excellent closing statement, right? And then run back here and get to hang out with you. It's like I am able to do exactly what I want.
Yeah. That's
right.
cool.
As opposed to, and trust me, it's still work managing a law firm.
Oh, sure.
But it's different than where I was 10 years ago, 11 years ago when I started it, when I wore all the hats.
Right. And you were trying to Lucy.
Yeah. I would be over there trying the case not terribly long ago. So, and not that I don't enjoy that, but it's nice to be able to, kind of pick the cases I want to try as opposed to having to try all of them.
Gotcha.
So that's the thing I like. And the growth, to be quite honest, just like I'm growing into a different person.
Yeah.
Especially, now that I'm an author, something that I dreamed about, for 40 years and being able to say that now I'm a published author, and having these two gigs that I get to, do something on or within each day. I mean, it's wonderful.
It's who you become.
Literally living my dream.
It's who you become. It's
weird
become,
though.
right?
It's weird though. And this is where my wife is again right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm always looking at the gap. Like I'm here, here's where I want to be. And I'm always looking at that.
Right.
And my wife is like, you need to start appreciating where you are and kind of look behind you and see where you've been and what you've gone through to get where you are now.
Exactly,
right. And she's
exactly why we do this podcast, big boy. Right. This is exactly why we do it. Okay. So you just mentioned that for 40 years, you've dreamed of writing a book. Why?
That may be a bit of an exaggeration, but we can go 35.
It's okay. Let's go 35.
Okay.
Why? What initially gave you that dream?
Oh, certainly Mr. Cloud.
Okay.
Right? Being in his English class.
Yeah.
You really turned me into a writer.
Wow.
Where I had always enjoyed reading. I never thought I could be a writer. And, just getting to sit there and learn from him, and he would, help me cobble together pieces and, teach me how to do it and his process, and then me coming up with my own. I mean, it was wonderful. And that's what started it. That started the appreciation.
I love this guy.
Yeah.
I love this guy.
Yeah, unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago, and I remember reaching out. I saw it on Facebook. I reached out to his daughter, and she and I got on the call, and it's emotional when someone like that, who's really influenced you, passes away. But I mean, the great thing is that he's still he's still here. He's still with me.
Yeah, he's still having an effect on you, right? That's immortality. So you decide to write the book. What makes you take that first leap and do it?
Okay. Well, probably about 15 years ago, I had written a blog on Chicago Now called Your Doubting Thomas. All right. It was really about state and national politics, and I was having a blast doing it. I was getting on radio, meeting people like within, kind of Chicago politics.
Mhm.
But then, just writing about politics back then, it started to get toxic. And I felt that I would, you get negative comments, and then I'd have this negative comment that would attach to me, and I'd carry it around with me for days. I'm in a courtroom, and I'm thinking about something, Bill from my task said.
Right.
And it just, right. And so I had this negative energy that I was carrying around with me, and it just wasn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
So I stopped doing that. And then, to be honest, I mean, as an African American, after, after George Floyd died, I remember sitting in my backyard, and I was angry, and I was, looking at the trees and squirrels going up and down trees, bunnies eating my flowers, and hearing like kids screaming in neighboring yards.
Mhm.
And I'm sitting on this couch in my backyard, and it just kind of hit me, the privilege that I had been living in, and I was kind of unaware of, because it was just day in and day out for me,
Yeah.
and how comfortable my life had been. And it caused me to really look at how I got there.
Yeah.
And that was kind of where this book came from. And that's why I call it The Privilege Race, because it's something that I believe that, that everyone can earn it.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't matter your skin color. It doesn't matter your sexuality, or, whatever ism you want. You can go out and earn it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's ultimately
This is
what
the land of
book is.
opportunity, right? This is the land of opportunity. If you don't think so, talk to somebody who just came here from a foreign country.
Yeah.
They'll tell you that the streets are paved with gold.
Still are.
And they mean
And the thing is that that doesn't mean it's not going to be easy, and that doesn't mean you're not going to fail,
Right.
because that's what my book is about. It's I don't want to say it's a story of failure, but I'm pretty honest about areas where I've fallen short, and when I've made mistakes, and it's my favorite fictional character, and I'm like stuttering when I say fictional, because to me he's not fictional, but it's Rocky Balboa.
Right.
Right. And it's just because every time he fell down, he got back up.
Yeah.
Right. And that's ultimately, it's not, how, it's not about just winning. It's about getting up after you fall down.
Yeah.
And persevering.
Yeah. Well, you're going to be judged on how you get up, right? You're going to be judged on how you recover from whatever it is that life, whatever setback life delivers you. And I'm truly believe, and you've heard this before on the podcast, I truly believe that these things are allowed to happen to us that are rough, right? If you look hard enough at any situation, no matter how tough it is, you'll find a positive. Okay.
100%.
And we're being prepared, Brian. We're absolutely being prepared to be able to come along somebody in the future that's going through something similar, put our arm around them and go, you know what? I've been through something like this, and here's how I dealt with it. Here's how I felt. Here's how I dealt with it. And we're going to get through this together. That's what this whole world is all about. That sense of community that you felt when you were growing up, the love and the support that your parents gave you, everything that you've experienced your entire life is now in that book. Right?
And and that's what we've been doing here, right? Because I'm a kidney transplant patient. I've had several orthopedic surgeries, hip surgeries. So I understand what it's like to be in the bed, in the hospital bed. I understand what it's like to have tubes in you. I understand what it's like to have chronic pain. And, I think that gives me an opportunity with my clients, because I'm not just some guy who's telling them, don't worry, it will be okay.
Right.
But I'm someone who's experienced what they're going through for the most part. And I'm the best person to help me, the person I was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And a lot of my clients are, at least with respect to pain and, having to, undergo some serious medical treatment, when they see a two-time kidney transplant patient sitting across from them saying, I've been there too, they start to think, well, maybe this guy actually knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. It's what you've been through and the triumph through it that is the biggest part. And the best part about what you did with that book was you were honest with people about what you've been through and what it's taught you, right? Because
Yeah.
there's wisdom there. People can learn from your mistakes and not go out and make their own. That's a big deal. And I'm so unbelievably proud of you. And I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad that you wrote this book. I cannot wait. We're going to put a link to it in your description. I cannot
Excellent.
wait to read it. I'm so proud of you. And I'm so glad we had an opportunity to have this time together. Thank you again so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience.
Mike, I really appreciate it. I mean, the guests that you have already had and the guests that are coming up, I cannot wait to see them and to be a part of this group of excellent people. I mean, you really set a high bar for me to meet, and I hope I did it with your listeners today. Thank you.
Job, buddy.
Grateful.
You did a great job. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.